So this weekend we have this precious opportunity to practice Vajrasattva, to purify past actions. In the hall this morning, Venerable Thubten talked about how, or maybe it was at stand-up meeting, I forget. Anyhow, this morning sometime she talked about how we're so used to making these resolutions around New Year's. And mostly they last a very short time and then we forget about them. And that's because we haven't created the causes. Whereas when we do Vajrasattva practice, we're creating the causes for transformation. So this is a precious opportunity. And of course, we all have the wish for happiness and freedom from suffering. And we engage in many activities to try and gain this happiness and avoid suffering. Yet our goal is rarely attained. And that's because the body and mind are under the influence of mental afflictions and karma. And so we encounter this unsatisfactoriness, this dukkha. So with Vajrasattva practice, we can start turning that result, purifying our past actions, creating merit. And then when we do this, we'll be able to progress on the path and meet our final goal, which is to become fully awakened, at which time we'll have the skill and ability to benefit all sentient beings in the most excellent way. So let's keep that motivation in mind as we explore Vajrasattva tonight. So, as beginners, at least I'm a beginner, our task is to accumulate merit and to purify negativities. These are the main causes of gaining realizations on the path, understanding the profound teachings of the Buddha, and then actualizing these understandings. So there's many different methods to accumulate merit and to purify. One method is to take precepts, and that's a defense against non-virtue. When we take precepts, every moment that we're not breaking the precepts, we're accumulating merit, even while sleeping. So that's a powerful method indeed. But as ordinary beings, many negative habits and intense afflictions cloud our mind, and we create negative actions, even though that's not our wish, of course. We don't wake up in the morning thinking, let's see what negative things I can do today. That's not what we do. And even though we sincerely practice, our minds will not be completely purified until enlightenment. So we're going to be engaging in purification for a long time. And so to understand the practice and to be able to really make a friend of Vajrasattva will really support our progress in our practice. The Vajrasattva meditation and the mantra recitation, these are powerful methods to make our mental continuum receptive and ripe for realizations. When we approach this kind of practice, it's really helpful to approach it, though, with a balanced mind, acknowledging our mistakes in a healthy manner. Oftentimes, when we make a mistake, it's really easy to get very harsh with ourselves, even to the point of self-hatred, actually. And so if we engage in these practices with that mind, these practices aren't going to work very well for us. So to have a balanced mind, to start out the practice thinking about that, is really helpful. And so again, it's from the basis of the actions I have done that I regret. We're done trying to find happiness and not to suffer. That's why all of us do everything that we do, trying to find happiness, trying not to suffer. Now, the important piece about this is that we need to avoid this trap of confusion where we think that we are our actions. So we need to separate our actions from who we are. So we all have good qualities, and none of us are just, one negative action that we've done. And so, but if you check up and see, the last time you did a negative action, if that felt like that was the sum total of who you are while you were, involved in recognizing what you did, or, see the pain that it caused somebody else. And if that's the case, then the mind is not very balanced. We've narrowed our focus to one thing and then defined ourselves by that action. And that's not realistic. We all have Buddha nature, and no matter what we do, that cannot be destroyed. And so it's really important to remember that, I think. So self-love and compassion is not based on our actions, only on the fact that we only want happiness and not suffering, just like every other being. And so just being a living being is worthy of respect. When you think about it, some actions that we do are negative, some are positive, but always changing, every day changing. The thing that never changes, however, is the fact that all living beings want happiness and they don't want to suffer. So in some way, these actions are secondary. I don't mean that they're not important. But if we approach our actions with this internal attitude of equanimity, then we'll have a more balanced, realistic view of ourselves. And this makes the basis of our concern very stable. Compassion for ourselves has a stable foundation, not vacillating depending on our temporary concerns, the temporary actions that we do, So all purification practices include the four opponent powers. It's taught that if the Vajrasattva meditation and recitation is undertaken properly using these four opponent powers, and the mantra is recited 21 times a day, it is said to prevent the negativities from increasing. So karma increases exponentially, so this puts the brake on that, on the negative ones. If we recite the mantra 100,000 times, it actually purifies the negativities. So it's a very powerful practice. So the four opponent powers are the power of reliance, power of regret, power of the remedial action, and the power of determination. So I'll just go over those briefly. So reliance, so we're relying on the three jewels and generating bodhicitta. So the negativities or the negative actions that we do towards Buddhas and holy objects or towards sentient beings, that's what we're looking at here. So purification is done in reliance upon the Buddhas through refuge, and purification is done in reliance upon sentient beings through bodhicitta. Then the second thing is we want to generate a strong regret, the power of regret. So regret is a very heartfelt regret. It's not guilt or shame. And so it's helpful to think about how you feel and how your body and mind feels when you're feeling guilty about something or feeling shamed about an action that you did. Those mind states are not helpful at all to us. That'll lead you down the road of thinking that you are your actions. And so it's not helpful. So what we want to do is think about, I made a mistake. And then we learn from it. We don't want to do it again. We want to avoid it in the future. And we can recall the negative actions that we've done. We can do a life review, dividing actions done by body, speech, and mind. We can recollect the 10 non-virtuous actions: killing, stealing, unwise or unkind sexual behavior, lying, creating disharmony with our speech, harsh words, idle talk, coveting, malice, and wrong views. But we approach all of these with a balanced mind. So we have this regret for having done this mistake. We know that we are not the action that we did, but we also keep in mind that actions can create lower rebirth. And when we think about that, then we generate this heartfelt regret. One of the analogies that they use often is if you sat at a table and there was some liquid there and you thought it was water, you took a big gulp of it, and then somebody came over and said, "Oh, that was poison." Oh, you would regret. That's regret. It's like, that's regret. No. So it's not, judgment stuff. It's just, I didn't want to do that. That's a mistake. Huh? So it's that kind of a mind. And then the remedial action. So the Lam Rim talks about 6 principal antidotes to negative actions. So the recitation of mantra, meditation on emptiness, prostrations, making images of the Buddha, reciting Dharma texts, and making offerings. So here in this practice, we use the recitation of the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva and meditation on Vajrasattva. So I want to talk a little bit about visualization. Often when we hear that word, we think we're doing something with our eyes, that it has something to do with seeing. But it's not. It doesn't have anything to do with vision. That's not really a very good translation for what we're doing. What we're doing is using our mental consciousness, our imagination. Now, often people say that they can't visualize, they can't do it. But everybody can do it. So if I ask you right now to think about the bedroom that you sleep in, just think about that for a minute. Okay, there's the bed, table, lamp, closet, rug. Yeah. So when you bring that to mind, that's mental consciousness. That's an image in the mind. That's visualizing. Now, why is it so much easier to visualize that, or say, ask you to recall the image of your mother, just her face, let's say. So we could do that for a minute. Oh yeah, I've got it. There she is. So kind of locked in time, but whatever the image comes, yeah. But I get it very easily. But now when we want to do Vajrasattva, it's like, I can't seem to get that. Well, what's the difference? It is just familiarity. That's all it is. How many times have we walked into our bedroom? We know what that looks like. It's in our mind. How many times have we looked at our mother's face? Many times. It's in our mind. How many times have we looked at the image of Vajrasattva? maybe not so many. So we have to start looking at what we want to meditate on, what we want to visualize. So we have to study that image or statue, either one. So we want to concentrate with our mental consciousness, not with our sense consciousness. So what's the point of these complex visualizations? How does that help us? So when we're focused on these details of this image, it helps to expand our mind's awareness and understanding of many different things at once. So that's helpful because that's what the Buddha does. Knows everything at once, yeah? So this is one of the ways that we can start training our minds to start thinking about many different things at once. Also, the point is what each detail represents, not what everything looks like. So the image of Vajrasattva holding a Vajra and bell. So the Vajra is the method side, the compassion of the Buddha. The bell represents wisdom, so the Buddha's wisdom. So when we see the image, we remember that. That's helpful. Also, Vajrasattva is white in color. So what does that remind us of? Well, he's developed all of his good qualities completely. Body made of light. So we need to expand our minds to slowly grow our awareness. So these complicated visualizations help us to do that. Lama Tsongkhapa gives some advice about visualizing a Buddha, any Buddha that we look at or want to visualize. He advises us to start with the eyes. He then says if the general form of the body is clear, we should hold that. If the general form is unclear but certain parts are clear, then we hold our attention onto whatever aspects are clear. If these few parts also fade, then we need to generate the entire general rough form once more. And so this takes practice. Often at first, we think we should get the image in our mind very clearly. And so we'll get maybe a portion or the face or a part, and then we push really hard to get the full image. And instead, we don't really get anything, except for maybe frustrated. So that's not helpful. So we have to train ourselves to pay attention to what does come into the mind after we've studied Vajrasattva image for some time. And then whatever comes in the mind, then we hold our mind to that. So we concentrate on what the image is in our mind. And so then we have to work. It's kind of like a balancing act. The mind wants to have a thought, or it wants to try too hard, or something like that. And instead, we don't go there. We just stay with what we have. And so that takes practice. It's a kind of a subtle balancing act almost. It takes time and practice to do that. So the way that we can do this is that we take a Thangka image or picture of Vajrasattva or a statue of Vajrasattva, and we transform it into a body made of light. So for me, what works the best is to think of a hologram. So I didn't know the definition of a hologram, so I looked it up, and it says it is a photographic recording of a light field. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So one example, or a couple examples actually. So if people have seen the movie Star Wars, and when, I think it was the first one, but I don't know, I have no idea, it's many years ago. But when the robot R2-D2 played a message from the princess, and it, came out of his thing, And there she was, you know, and it was her talking, and she was about this big. That's a hologram. Yeah. Or you can think about Star Trek, people that have watched Star Trek, you know, when they said, beam me up, Scotty. So they beamed him up, and as they got up to the ship, at first they were hologram form, and then everything filled out, you know, into solid body again. And so that's what we want to work with, that kind of a form. So it's a 3D body made of light. So it's important to think about that the figure is not solid, made of light, and alive. It's not a statue. It's not a tanka. It's alive. And it's helpful to imagine that there's just a little bit of physicalness, some weight to that light. And that helps to keep the image stable. Because if we think too much in terms of it being just light, the image kind of floats around often, you know, it's not very stable. So again, you know, you have to play with this. When we visualize, it's a creative process. We have to play. If we approach it like I'm going to do it, no matter, you know, that never will work. So we allow the image to come in our mind. And then whatever comes, then we start playing with that kind of. In this practice, we visualize Vajrasattva above the crown of our head. So how do we work with that? Well, one way that we can train ourselves about that is to put our hand on our head and then take it off, and we still feel that. And then let that feeling go about 4 inches above. So, okay, here it is. Now I take my hand off, I still feel it. Now I'm going to go up about 4 inches. Okay, now I'm going to put Vajrasattva there. There you are, okay. A very powerful being, made of light, purified all negativities, only wishes to benefit us, sees our potential, knows that we can become Buddhas. That's what's above the crown of our head. When we're working with visualizations, it's also important to add the details cumulatively. So when you have one detail and some focus, then you try to add another one without losing the first one. And then you get those two, and then you do the next one. So it's this, just me describing it, you can see that it's a slow process. It's not quick. And the more concentration we have, the easier it goes. If we lose focus on the first one after we've got some focus on the second one, we need to start back again and get the focus again, and then add another. So that's how you start building up these visualizations over time. And at first, of course, we don't get much, and it's not very clear. And that's okay. Then that's what you start with, and that's what you work with. So whatever that is then above your crown, then you start generating this feeling of being in the presence of somebody that is a Buddha. And then also we generate this image of Vajrasattva in the context of our understanding of emptiness. So if you visualize Vajrasattva as a body made of light, a hologram, instead of something very solid, existing inherently, unchanging, then when we think about it in terms of body made of light, hologram, then that helps us to break down our habit of viewing everything as solid and concrete. Then also, we bring in the bodhicitta motivation. And then if we bring all of these aspects in, then we get a very, very powerful visualization going. And then while we recite the 100-syllable mantra, we imagine the light and nectar flowing from Vajrasattva, flowing into us. You can kind of think of it like a shower of light gentle but penetrating. That's one way to think about it. And if you have trouble getting that going, sometimes I used to just think of myself standing in the shower, and just as I turn on the water and the spray that comes, so here comes the nectar, here comes the light, so like that. So you just, again, creative, you use whatever you can find to use to get the image going and to feel connection to this Buddha above your crown. As far as how big you make the Buddha above your crown, that's individual, so you play with that a little bit. I tend to make one not so large. For me, the smaller it is, the more detail I get. If I make it big, then it's harder to get detail. But that's just my mind. Your mind might be the total opposite, and that's just fine. Yeah. So if we think about all these different aspects that I've talked about so far, it's very significant because we're doing many, many things simultaneously. By focusing on a Buddha like Vajrasattva, we gain concentration. We focus on the qualities of Vajrasattva. This helps us to keep our concentration on those qualities. Then we can focus on the Vajrasattva, and concentration can be accomplished with very strong taking of refuge. So in other words, this is a safe direction I want to go in my life. If I follow this path, I will not be disappointed. It will bring the results. And then we accompany our concentration with bodhicitta aim as well. So I want to become a Buddha like this figure I'm imagining in order to be able to benefit everyone. So this is what we're gaining concentration on over time. And this has very far-reaching benefits than just concentrating on, for example, the sensation of the breath going in and out the nose. So it's a vast method. It's a vast vehicle of training through vast techniques. So that's what Mahayana is. So if you're just starting out, then you want to be very patient with yourself and very gentle with yourself while you're building up the visualization, realizing that it's a slow process and letting that be okay. If you try to push or you get frustrated with it, that just stops the progress. And then we set the determination after we have done the mantra, and we resolve not to do these non-virtuous actions again in the future. And so when we set the determination, we use a reasonable time frame. So I don't know about you, but I have habits in my mind that I have been purifying every day for many years. And I will probably continue to do that for a long time. That doesn't mean I'm failing. Actually, it means I am succeeding because I will get to the place where I can purify everything, understand the teachings enough so that I do not do these actions. Then there's other ones, of course, that we know we'll never do them in our lives intentionally, like killing. I still step on bugs when I'm not so mindful. I purify, but that's not an intention that I had. Yeah. So you just, make something reasonable for yourself. The important part, especially with habits, though, if I purified a habit in the morning or at night, then, and I set a time frame. So, like if in the morning I'll do a purification for, exaggerating the truth or not disclosing something that I should disclose, for example, by omission. Then I give myself a time frame. So usually I'll say, okay, between now and lunch, I am not going to do that. But then at lunchtime, I have to go back and see how did I do. Oftentimes, we just set it, but then we don't go back. But this practice is about transforming our habits. So I want to see how I did. And if I didn't do that habit again, then I want to acknowledge that and, esteem yourself for that. That's something pretty wonderful, And then if you do that every day, then you start getting some really transformative habits going. And of course, every day, even, like today, I did not kill anything intentionally. How many people in this world today killed intentionally? And we did not. Do you ever let that in? It would be okay to. That would be helpful. That's part of who you are, you see. So then that starts giving us a more balanced view of who we are. Our habit is so, you ask anybody, what are the bad things you did or the things you did wrong? You can write a list, I don't know, a mile long. And then somebody asks, well, what are the positive things you've done? What are the virtuous things? It's like, it's one of those like, isn't it true? So that's not balanced. Yeah. So we have to familiarize ourselves with what we do that is virtuous and let it in. Let it in. So like most of these kinds of practices, there's many parts to it. And so we also have to approach these practices very gently. So you start with one thing. So maybe with this particular practice, what I did was first memorize the mantra. Because it's kind of hard to meditate and do the visualizations when I don't know the mantra yet, That's your own, you can't do those two things together. So memorize the mantra first. So how do you memorize the mantra? Well, you read the words. But after a while, even before you think you've memorized anything, you put the book down and you start listening to the group reciting the mantra. And you start recognizing the words now, and you start, moving your mouth and saying too. You'll mess up or you won't know all of them. That's okay. But if you keep doing that, pretty soon you'll have it memorized very easily. So once we have the mantra memorized, then we can really start sinking into the practice that we're going to do this weekend. And so, then the next step is to get the mantra going and then start getting the visualization built, whatever that is for you. At first maybe it's just a light, that's fine. Or maybe it's, the face, that's fine. Or maybe, the Dorjian bell, that's fine. Whatever it is. But you get to the point where you have the mantra going and you're starting to add the visualization now. And you're keeping in your mind what you're actually purifying. So an action of body, or an action of speech, or an action of mind. And so you see how you start adding. And it doesn't take very long, actually, when you start doing this. I think the thing that trips us up the most, at least it did me at the beginning, was I thought that I should be able to have a very clear image of Vajrasattva. And even when you think about the image of a loved one, mother, father, brother, sister, whatever, friend, when you imagine them in your mind's eye, it is not like looking at something with your eyes, but it's still clear. So that's the kind of clarity we're talking about. So it's not going to be looking like something you look at with your eyes. So that, to remember that. So are there any questions from what I've said so far? Anything that's... Shane?
I think I just have a problem how to visualize it.
So is it from outside or inside?
Yeah,
Kind of
yeah,
like that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I visualize from inside. So I start with me, and then I imagine Vajrasattva on my crown, and then the light and nectar is coming into this body here, because I am purifying this body and mind. So like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's like the directional. Like, are you looking like a camera's looking at you and the Buddha?
Like me and the Buddha? No,
it's
it's here.
Okay.
Yeah, all of our practice is here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's right here.
Thank you.
Yeah. Stephen?
So I have a similar question. I guess I'm wondering where are my eyes? Am I outside of myself looking back at myself and Vajrasattva, or am I behind myself? Because
No, you're inside yourself.
But it's like the perspective of how do you see something on your head? I guess that's the question.
Okay, so if you put your hand here and you close your eyes, you can feel your hand on your head. Now, if you take that off and move it up about 4 inches, you can still feel where your hand is. Now, if you remove your hand and you generate the image of Vajrasattva, now there is Vajrasattva. And now light and nectar is coming down, and it's coming down into my crown and into my body and permeating every cell of the body and every moment of mind.
Maybe another way to ask it, are we looking at the front of Vajrasattva? Is the visualization of the front of Vajrasattva?
Gosh, help me out here, people. I don't know how to answer that. Okay.
It's kind of like I have an awareness, but the awareness is larger than my body. So I'm here, and I'm aware of my body in space.
Yes.
And then there's Vajrasattva above my head, and it's like my mind is just another like 30 centimeters outside of my body, if you want to put
okay.
Or how many inches that is.
Or do the math.
Yes. But it's just like my awareness of my body is just grown a little bit so that I'm aware of me in space. And then there's another figure above my head. So it's like, just as I have an awareness of my back, I can't literally see it, but I'm aware that it's there. I'm aware of the back of my head and my ears. It's parts of my body that I can't see. I'm aware that they're there, and I've kind of got an image of it in my mind because I know I've seen myself in a mirror.
Yeah.
Then similarly, I can see Vajrasattva above my head in a 360 view.
Yes.
Just as I can kind of imagine myself sitting here in a 360 view.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But that's fine. But if you're going to actually do this, this visualization and purification, it is doing it with you here inside. It's you. Of course, we have an awareness of. I know I'm aware that I'm in this room, etc. But when I'm doing purification, it's about me and the Buddha above my crown. If it was about me watching myself over there with the Buddha above my crown, that's kind of a disconnect. That's not helpful, I don't think.
I was looking at some notes of Venerable's teaching on this, and
Uh-huh.
what she said was that Vajrasattva is above the crown of your head. No, I've lost it. But so it's there, but it's like an extension of you.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
your own wisdom
Yeah,
and
there you
bliss
go.
and compassion
Yeah.
above the crown of your head.
Yeah.
So if you can sit here, and even though you don't have to go take your mind out and turn around and look at yourself sitting here,
Yeah.
you can close your eyes and imagine how you look sitting here.
Yeah.
And in the same way, then, you can imagine how you look with your Vajrasattva on the crown of your head.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You're practicing it that way.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah. But the key is that there's an extension there. There's a connection there. That's what is the most important part.
It's the
because
extension of yourself.
yes, because that's what we're transforming ourselves into. Venerable Kunga?
There's 2 questions online.
Uh-huh.
Which way is he facing?
Same way that we face.
And then how is purifying different than healing from a Buddhist perspective?
How is purifying different from healing? What's the definition of healing that they're using? I don't know how to answer the healing part, but I can answer the purifying part, I think. So when I am purifying actions that were not skillful, and I use the 4 opponent powers, I am slowly transforming my behavior so I don't do those actions so frequently. And so then I'm creating less negative, non-virtuous actions, and I am making more space available in my mind to understand the teachings better and to progress in the direction that I want to progress.
So is it recommended to just really try and stick with and focus on one visualization, on just concentrating on that versus just going back and forth between a bunch of different visualizations?
What kind of different visualizations?
Like visualizations of Vajrasattva, but in different like places or different qualities or different colors or...
Yeah, no, so we have a Tonka here that shows us what Vajrasattva looks like. So that's what we use. We try to, I mean, if you've already memorized a different one, that's fine, use that. But so we follow the sadhana, the practice, exactly as it is. That's, if we start doing what you've just described, we're kind of bringing in things and doing things that I don't know what the result would be. But I do know what the result of this would be. So I want to follow this menu. I want to follow this recipe. Because this is what the Buddhas did to become Buddhas. So I'll trust that. Because on my own, I don't know. You can have a really good imagination and do many things. And you probably have a lot in this life and past lives, like we all have. But we're not Buddhas, are we? So I don't know how well that worked. Yeah, so try this one. Yeah. So let's, I'll lead us through the practice now. And you can open the book to, I don't know the page. Can someone help me with the page? 37 in the red book. Or for those folks online, it's in the chat box maybe, or it's Guide to Abbey Programs online. There's a toggle called Vajrasattva Meditation, so that you can have that in front of you, because we're going to do the recitations together. So let's get into our meditative posture. So if you're sitting in the chair, your feet are flat on the floor. Your back is not leaning against the chair. It's you're holding yourself up using your spine and your sit bones. Your hands are in your lap. The right is in the left with the thumbs touching up against the belly. You can lower your eyes. You can lift up your breastbone a bit, which keeps your posture nice and straight. You can do a brief body scan to relax your muscles. And we want to keep our mind vividly aware. We don't want to fall into dullness or sleepiness. If our mind has too many thoughts and it's just going a mile a minute, then you can bring your awareness down to your belly, and that will slow down the thoughts a bit. Also, bowing your head just a little bit will help that also. So every time we meditate, we have to meet our body where it is. It's always different. If you can breathe through your nose, that's great. Your lips are together. No need to have your teeth touching. Relax your jaw. And now visualize about 4 inches above your head an open white lotus made of light, upon which is a moon disk made of light. Vajrasattva is seated upon this. His body is made of white light and adorned with beautiful ornaments and clothes of celestial silk. His 2 hands are crossed at his heart. The right holds a vajra, the left holds a bell. At his heart is a moon disk with the seed syllable hum. You can visualize the seed syllable if you know it. If you don't, just the word hum. At the heart is just fine. The hum is at its center, and the letters of Vajrasattva 100-syllable mantra standing clockwise around its edge. Now, holding this visualization clearly in your mind, we contemplate and recite refuge 3 times. I take refuge in the 3 jewels. I will liberate all sentient beings and lead them to awakening. Thus, I perfectly generate the mind dedicated to attaining awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge in the 3 jewels. I will liberate all sentient beings and lead them to awakening. Thus, I perfectly generate the mind dedicated to attaining awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. I take refuge in the 3 jewels. I will liberate all sentient beings and lead them to awakening. Thus, I perfectly generate the mind dedicated to attaining awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. Keeping Vajrasattva above your crown. Now think about harmful physical, verbal, mental actions you have done, both those you can remember and those you recreated in previous lives but cannot recall. For this meditation tonight, you can just pick one thing and generate some deep regret for having done this. Have a strong wish to be free from the suffering results and to avoid causing harm to others and yourself in the future. Seeing Vajrasattva as a combination of the wisdom and compassion of all the Buddhas, and as your own wisdom and compassion in fully developed form, we'll make this request together. O Bhagavan Vajrasattva, please clear away all negative karma and obscurations of myself and all living beings, and purify all degenerated and broken commitments. From the hung at Vajrasattva's heart, light radiates in all directions, requesting the Buddhas to bestow their inspiration. They accept the request and send white rays of light and nectar, the essence of which is the knowledge of their body, speech, and mind. The light and nectar absorb into the home and the letters of the mantra at Vajrasattva's heart. They then fill his entire body, enhancing the magnificence of his appearance and increasing the brilliance of the mantra. While we recite the mantra, we'll do it 7 times. Visualize that white rays of light and nectar stream continuously from the hung and mantra at Vajrasattva's heart. They flow down through the crown of your head, fill every cell of your body and mind with infinite bliss. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padita Dido Mebowa Sutoka Mebowa Supoka Mebowa Anarata Mebowa Sarasira Mempe Etsasar Kaman Sutsame Sikam Shiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Samaya Safa Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padita Dido Mebowa Sutokaya Mebowa Supokaya Mebowa Anarato Mebowa Sarasira Mempe Etsasara Kaman Sutame Sikam Shiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Samaya Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Patita Dido Mebowa Sutokaya Mebowa Supokaya Mebowa Anarato Mebowa Sarasira Mempe Etsasara Kaman Sutame Sikam Shiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Samaya Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Patita Dido Mebowa Sutokaya Mebowa Supokaya Mebowa Anarato Mebowa Sarasira Mempe Etsasara Kaman Sutame Sikam Shiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Samaya Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Patita Dido Mebowa Sutoka Mebowa Supoka Mebowa Anarato Mebowa Sarasira Mempe Etsasar Karman Sutsame Sikam Shiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Samaya Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padita Dido Mebowa Sutoka Mebowa Supaka Mebowa Anarata Mebowa Sarasira Mempe Etsasara Kaman Sutame Sikam Shiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Samaya Safa Ahum Pe. So you can feel the vibration in the body from the mantra. Now we can do the specific visualization of purification of the body. So bring to mind an action of killing or stealing or unwise or unkind sexual behavior you've done in the past. Remember, you were just trying to find happiness and not suffer. You made a mistake. Now you have the opportunity to purify this mistake. So your afflictions and negativities in general, and in particularly those of the body, take the form of black ink. Sickness takes the form of pus and blood, and disturbances caused by spirits appear in the form of scorpions, snakes, frogs, and crabs. These are all flushed out by the light and nectar. They leave your body through the lower openings like filthy liquid flowing from a drain pipe. And as we do this, we feel completely empty of these problems and negativities. They no longer exist anywhere. So we'll do the mantra 3 times, doing this particular visualization now. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dero Padeta Diro Mebawa Sutuka Mebawa Supoka Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarasita Mempe Atsasar Karman Sutsame Sikam Chiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Samaya Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dero Padeta Diro Mebawa Sutuka Mebawa Supoka Mebawa Anarata Mebawa Sarasita Mempe Atsasar Kaman Sutame Sikam Chiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Masmaya Safa Ahum Pe Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dero Padeta Diro Mebawa Sutuka Mebawa Supoka Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarasita Mempe Atsasar Kaman Sutsame Sikam Chiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Masamaya Safa Ahum Pe. Now we'll purify our speech. So bring to mind a time you lied or created disharmony with your speech, or you said harsh words to somebody, or used a lot of idle talk, wasting a lot of time. So bring up one of those incidents to your mind. And then generate deep, heartfelt regret for having done that action. Your afflictions and the latencies of negativities of speech take the form of liquid tar. The light and nectar fill your body as water fills a dirty glass. The negativities, like dirt, rise to the top and flow out through the upper openings of your body, eyes, ears, mouth, nose. And feel completely empty of these negativities. They are gone forever. Again, we'll do the mantra 3 times. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padita Dido Mebawa Sutukaya Mebawa Supukaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarasiddha Mempeyatsa Sarakaman Sutame Sikam Shiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Samaya Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padita Dido Mebawa Sutukaya Mebawa Supukaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarasiddha Mempeyatsa Sarakaman Sutame Sikam Chiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasafa Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Patita Dido Mebawa Sutukaya Mebawa Supukaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarasiddha Mempeyatsa Sarakaman Sutame Sikam Shiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Safa Ahum Pe. Again, feel completely empty of these negativities. They're gone forever. Now, purification of mind. Select a time when you have a coveting or malice toward another or wrong views. Now generate a heartfelt regret. Remembering the suffering that it caused others and the suffering it will cause you in the future when this karma ripens if you don't purify it. Your afflictions and the latencies of mental negativities appear as darkness at your heart. When struck by the forceful stream of light and nectar, the darkness instantly vanishes. It is like turning a light on in a room. The darkness does not go anywhere, it simply ceases to exist. Feel that you are completely empty of all these negativities. They are non-existence. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padita Dido Mebawa Sutukaya Mebawa Supukaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarasiddha Mempeyatsa Sarakaman Sutame Sikam Shiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Masamaya Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padita Dido Mebawa Sutukaya Mebawa Supukaya Mebawa Anarato Mebawa Sarasiddha Mempeyatsa Sarakaman Sutame Sikam Chiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramami Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padita Dido Mebawa Sutukaya Mebawa Supokaya Mebawa Anarata Mebawa Sarasiddha Mempeyatsa Sarakaman Sutame Sikam Shiram Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Saratata Gata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Safa Ahum Pe. Again, feel that you are completely empty of all these negativities. They're a non-existence. And then we can do a simultaneous purification. We can do these 3 visualization simultaneously. This sweeps away the subtle obscurations that prevent us from seeing correctly all that exists. So one way that you can do that is start the light and nectar from Vajrasattva, and it permeates the body going downward. And then you bring in the next one where light goes from the feet up and brings those negativities up through the openings in the face, the upper body. And then as you continue to do it, you have the light and nectar fill the darkness at the heart. And so we'll work with this one now and do it for 3 repetitions also. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padeta Dedo Mebawa Sutukaya Mebawa Supokaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarasiddhi Mempayatsa Sar Kaman Sutame Sikam Shim Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Sara Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Masamaya Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padeta Dedo Mebawa Sutukaya Mebawa Supokaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarasiddha Mempayatsa Sar Kaman Sutame Sikam Shim Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Sara Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Masamaya Safa Ahum Pe Nom Vajrasattva Samaya Manapalaya Vajrasattva Dedo Padeta Dedo Mebawa Sutukaya Mebawa Supokaya Mebawa Anurata Mebawa Sarasiddhi Mempayatsa Sara Kaman Sutame Sikam Shim Kum Hum Ha 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 Ho Bhagawan Sara Tathagata Vajramame Mutsa Vajrabhava Masamaya Safa Ahum Pe. So again, feel completely free of these obscurations. So it's very important to allow yourself to feel purified. Using your imagination and focusing on these past actions. It helps to transform them. And then we make this power of determination. And so we're talking directly to Vajrasattva above our crown when we make this determination. So make a very strong heart connection with this Buddha that is helping us actualize the path through this practice. And so we take refuge in Vajrasattva, reciting the following under the power of determination. Through ignorance and delusion, I have broken and degenerated my commitments. O spiritual master, be my protector and refuge. Lord, holder of the Vajra, endowed with great compassion, in you, the foremost of beings, I take refuge. And then make the determination. I shall do my best not to do these destructive actions again in the future. Now make a specific determination of time for one of these that you worked with, or as many as you want. It Do that now. And now again refresh the visualization of Vajrasattva above your crown. And oh, he is extremely pleased. And he says to you, my spiritual child of the essence, all your negativities, obscurations, and degenerated vows have now been completely purified. And now with delight, Vajrasattva melts into light and he dissolves into you through your crown. So imagine that. And now your body, speech, and mind become inseparable from Vajrasattva's holy body, speech, and mind. And concentrate on this. And now we'll dedicate the merit for having done this practice